Hello, Revere, and welcome to our great show, the Revere Veterans and Community. Today we have three special guests. Everyone is a veteran. Len Sandler, who wrote a book right here, See You on the High Ground, which he'll be talking to you about. Mr. Monti, who's the father of Jared Monti. Welcome, welcome. And Steve Fielding, who's my director at the Revere Senior Center, who does an excellent job. So we're going to start off with you first because this is about the book. Take it away, Len.
Well, my friend Paul and I met on the playground back when we were 9 years old. That was, what, 15 years ago or so, Paul?
Yeah,
just
maybe
a few
20.
more than
15 times
yeah,
what?
It seems like that,
Yeah.
anyhow. Mm-hmm. And we went to elementary school together and middle school and then high school. And then we went our separate ways, and like you do with so many of your classmates in high school, we sort of lost touch. I knew about Jared, of course, as the first Medal of Honor recipient from Massachusetts since the Vietnam War. And I decided to call my friend Paul and from out of the blue say, Paul, do you remember me? And he said, you remember?
Of course I remember you.
And I said, you know what, Paul, I'd like to write a book about your son. And he said,
well, come on over and we'll talk about it.
And I was so relieved because I didn't know what he'd say. The worst case scenario was his saying, I don't remember you. Or maybe even saying, who do you think you are? But we renewed our friendship, we got back together, and it was as if the 50 years had never passed at all. We started to get together and make a plan for coming up with a book about Jared.
By the way, I have to say one thing. First of all, I want to thank you for the book. It's one of the best veterans books that I've ever read about military, and I love it. And I think everyone out there should get a copy of this book and really read it because it's fantastic. It's about your son, Paul. And we would like to ask you, can you give us a little history about Jared as a child?
Oh, sure. There's a lot of that in the book, and I think people have to realize that this isn't one of those books where you've got Rambo and G.I. Joe killing everybody in sight, because that's not who my son was, and that's not what I wanted in the book. And after going through a number of authors, I finally hit on an author that said, you know, this story is more true than anything anybody could make up about a young man who just gave and gave and gave his whole life, of a great humanitarian who happened to, in the end, give the ultimate, give his own life for someone else. As a child, wow.
So many stories.
I could for hours, but we had a very adventurous kid, was afraid of nothing, would climb anything, would crawl over anything, would do anything. There wasn't a tree too high, there wasn't a hill too high, there wasn't a river too wide. I remember he was about 4 years old. We bought him one of those big wheels thing, and yeah, man, he loved that. And I come home from work, and what do I got in my driveway? He's already got a piece of plywood set up with a ramp, and he's jumping over jumps. He's 4 years old. What are you doing, son? This is the way he was. I mean, he was. He went from the big wheels to the bicycle with the pegs on it, so that he could stand in the back tire and do tricks, to the go-kart, to the mini bike, to the off-road bike, the dirt bike, to the motorcycle. But you know, so we got a really adventurous kid. But it seemed like his lot in life was to make other people happy, and that's what he did all the time. He brought joy wherever he went, and that was what God intended him to do, was to make other people happy and to look out after other people.
Right.
In his whole life.
You came down years ago, well, not years ago, but last year, I believe it was, you came to the Paul Figlio funeral home, and you made a speech about your son. And the flag that was put up there. And before we continue, You do a lot of stuff with the flags up on. Can you let the people know exactly how they could help you out if they wish to help you out by donating money, where they could send it to the Jared C. Monti?
Oh, sure. Yeah, we place now about 59,000 flags on the graves at the National Cemetery in Bourne, a practice which was forbidden for the first 31 years of that cemetery. And we finally got permission to do that.
And it was because of you, Paul, that we do it now. And I go down there every so often.
Oh, I'm so proud of all my Revereites that come down and help out. They come down in a bus and help us plant all those flags. And we do, you know, we plant the flags on the Saturday before Memorial Day and Veterans Day, one for each grave. We collect them on the Sunday, not the next Sunday, but a week later on the Sunday. But our hard task is with 58,000 flags, we have to buy the flags. Government doesn't provide them, the state doesn't provide them. We have to purchase all these flags. We have to put them in, we have to take them out ourselves, and then we have to store them.
Right,
So
and if people wanted to donate to you like I do, tell them what they could send the money to.
They can send the money to, well, they can send it directly to me, Paul Monti, 408 Center Street, Rainham, Mass. 02767. Or they could send it to the Bristol County Bank on North Main Street in Rainham. They can go on our website, www.sfcjaredcmonti.com, and get information there. We're also on Facebook. They can look up SFC Jared C. Monti on Facebook and get information from there.
Right.
So.
Now I would like to introduce my director of the Senior Center, Steve Fielding. Steve, first of all, let me thank you on behalf of all the seniors there for bringing these two gentlemen together. So you could take it away and tell us how you did that.
Well, first of all, let me just say it's a privilege to be among three very strong veterans, and I feel honored to be invited here today.
You're a veteran yourself too, you know.
A veteran of the community, I know.
That's right.
I know the agenda.
Right.
But in regard to how we got Paul to come and Len, it was through you. I mean, I remember meeting Paul, I think about a year and a half ago when you first came and you were raising money for the flags, and we did that through the Senior Center. When you mentioned the book to me, I said that would be great if we could have them come down here to the Senior Center and have a book signing, and it worked out pretty well. We had a nice day today, and I got to know these gentlemen today because we had lunch together as well. So I feel like we kind of bonded pretty well, and we're going to continue to do more for our veterans more beyond what we've been doing. And today's book signing certainly brought out a lot of the people that we expected to come, and we hope to have them back as well. If anybody wants to donate to the Jared C. Monti Charitable Foundation, Charitable Fund, they can send it to the Revere Senior Center or the Rossetti Cowan Senior Center, 25 Winthrop Ave in Revere, 02151.
I would like to give one gentleman credit here. I know he's going to be very bashful and not admit it. Our mayor, Dan Rizzo, when he has a party and he invites me to go there, I try to take up a collection for the troops for money for the flags. And he's done that ever since him and I got together to know what to do. So every time the mayor has a function, he lets me go down and collect money, and the money is sent directly to you, Paul, for the flags that
We
born.
appreciate it so much, so very much.
So it's not only the people of Revere that's chip in, it's the mayor, the government itself that chips in. So Mayor Dan Rizzo, thank you for letting us do that.
Being a veteran himself, I'm sure.
It's 6-year Navy
it's to
man.
his heart.
Right.
That's correct. Right.
So I salute him for his service.
Right.
But, you know, without people like Morris, these kinds of programs don't happen. And here's a guy that stands up and says, hey, we got to do something. We got to do the right thing. We got to do something for our veterans. Right. And not everybody's willing to do that. But this gentleman right here is.
Paul, I'd like to say something to you. We met about 3 years ago, I believe.
Correct.
We took up a collection, and we did quite good that time. Remember, you came down there. I never knew this gentleman before. He came down here, and we hit it right off the bat. I mean, he lighted up the whole senior center. We had a good group of people with us, Paul. You came down, you made a nice speech. You said what you needed. Nick Boer, who's our Revere Veterans agent here, presented you with a nice check to take back to your troops. So, Nick, if you're listening out there, thank you.
Morris, can I just make a little plug while these gentlemen are here?
You could do whatever you wish.
After today's book signing, I know that because of the weather and other conditions, the coldness and the parking, there was more people expected. So I invited both Len and Paul back to the Senior Center on our monthly function in May 28th.
Oh, that's the Memorial Day.
It's our Memorial Day celebration, May 28th. And Len will be down and doing another book signing. He'll be bringing more books, and he'll be autographing them, and we'll be showing the video montage that he put together. And Paul will be joining us as well. So if anybody in the audience is interested, we would love to have you come down May 28th, 10:30 a.m., just before our party. Len and Paul will be there. Len will be signing books. The books are only $20. It's a beautiful book, and it's a beautiful testament to a beautiful person.
Right, Paul. First of all, thank you for autographing the book, and you too, Len. Take this book and show it to the people, especially the pictures, some of them in there. They're very beautiful pictures. And that's the book that you did.
Yes, indeed. I spent the last year of my life working on it.
And you did an excellent job.
It was a pleasure.
He did.
An excellent job. Now, I want to get back to you, Steve, for a minute. Tell us something about you as new director of the Senior Center.
New old. The
Well,
new
not
old
old.
director.
New old. I mean, you've accomplished quite a bit in less than a year, really, when you think
It's
of it.
been a year, a little over a year. Yeah.
Is it over a year?
Yeah, 3 weeks over a year.
Well, time flies by when you do good things.
And I'm having fun, and I love it. So,
Right.
And our seniors are wonderful people, and many of them are veterans.
Exactly. There's a lot of people out there, if I may say, like seniors like myself, that have nothing to do in the daytime. You have a van, and you're getting another van to help them. Tell us something about that.
Well, we offer a lot, as you know, and I've been on the show, and I've talked about what we have. We have a number of programs, activities, and services. We have a shuttle van that we've had for a little bit over a year. It was donated by the East Boston Neighborhood Health Center. It's 10 years old. So last year, with the help of Debbie West from the mayor's office, we both sat down and wrote a grant to the Mass Department of Transportation to acquire a new van, and we were awarded a new van. So I expect that we would have that by the end of June this year. In fact, I just approved it to be built. What happens is a company in New York, your home state, is building it, and they create a shell of the van. It's similar to the one that you might see on the streets that the ride uses, and depending on the options and the ancillary exceptions that they may put in there, they build it right from the inside out. And that's being worked on right now, actually. So that is so vital. Transportation is the #1 issue for senior centers because seniors need to get to the senior center. Most of the seniors that attend senior centers or councils on aging are over 80 years old. Many of them live alone. Many of them depend on the meals that we serve at our senior center, for instance.
Tell us a little about those meals. What do you serve so that we can get them down there to finish eating at the place?
Basically, we serve anywhere between 45 and 70 people a day. And our main meal of the day is their main meal of the day. And usually, here's an example of a meal. Today we had veal cutlet with rotini, a French roll, salad, dessert, milk, and coffee for the big, huge price of $1.50. And it doesn't take much to make a reservation to come. All you have to do is call the Senior Center at 781-286-8156. Put your name in. When you come in the next day, okay, all you have to do is pay your $1.50. You get a ticket, which is your meal ticket, and then you have your lunch, and you're very full for the day, and you're very happy because you get to socialize. You enjoy a relaxing atmosphere, a very fun, positive, safe atmosphere. You enjoy music that you play, and there's a number of programs, services, and activities. The shuttle service is vitally important, as I said. What happens is you have to come in and register. We take your contact information down in your emergency contact. You buy a book of coupons because we don't take credit cards or cash on the shuttle. Okay, you have to buy a book of coupons for $10. You get 10 coupons. For each way we pick you up in Revere, you only have to pay 1 coupon. That beats the rides price, I know that.
Right. I got a question for you, Steve, before we continue with the gentleman here. If people need a pass on the T, a T pass, can they come to the senior center?
What we've done, at least in the last year, is have 2 separate events. And what we do is we work with the MBTA
Right.
to have an event where people can come in, have their picture taken, fill out a form. We do all this at the senior center with the senior center staff. And what we do is submit the application to the MBTA. And it's a senior ID pass. And it's a discounted rate on the subways and the bus lines.
That's good. Mr. Monti, I got to get back to you for a minute. Your son, may he rest in peace, was over in Afghanistan when he got killed.
Yes.
But the people that flew the helicopter there actually pinpointed where your son was, really, when I think of it, because when you say they were dropping supplies down, and if I was an enemy, and I would watch where the supplies were falling and where they were being picked up, I would know where to aim my gun. Could you tell us what happened? There was a gentleman there that got, he also got killed, I believe, I can't remember his first name, but was it Bradbury?
Brian Bradbury eventually
I
died.
couldn't think of his first
Pat
name.
Liebert was the first one killed. And
Yeah, tell us
eventually
something
Heath
about
Craig
that, Paul.
as well. Well, my son was with a 16-man platoon. They were sent out to do observations of a valley, which was a stronghold for the Taliban. They climbed for 3 days up a mountain in 100-degree temperatures and set up an observation point at 8,500 feet overlooking this valley and the compound where the Taliban were to give information to a large force that was going to attack into the valley. Because of the extreme temperatures that they were under, they were running very low. They were out of water and running very low on food. So they had called back to get an airdrop of supplies. And the way it had been set up was when the attack began into the valley, they would make the airdrop of supplies so that the helicopter wouldn't be spotted. Unfortunately, one of the helicopter pilots got sick, and because of the lack of helicopters, pilots, and equipment, the attack into the valley had to be postponed, which meant these 16 guys were on top of this mountain with no food, no water, and they had to stay there and wait for 2 days. So the Army decided to send in a supply helicopter. And as the helicopter came in, it missed the coordinates that it was given and flew right over the compound and then right back over where the platoon was, where they were hiding, and dropped the supplies there. So they were compromised, and they had a choice: either head back down the mountain or stay and wait 2 days for the attack to come. And a lot of strange things happened in that time period. First of all, they decided to complete their mission, which is part of the soldier's creed. Always complete your mission. Rather than going down where, if the enemy was there, they would be subject to the enemy on the high ground, which is the worst place you can be. So they decided to set up a secure position. Later in the afternoon, or late morning actually, 2 women came walking up a goat path right into where they were. And they had to decide what to do with the women. Do we detain them? What do we do with them? And their decision was to let them go. And we won't know to this day whether they were agents of the Taliban or not. Anyway, the Taliban knew where they were and sent a very strong force. Some estimate it as high as 80 Taliban. Low estimates were 50. And as the sun went down that evening, they heard rustling in the woods, and all of a sudden the air exploded with small arms fire, machine gun fire, RPGs, rocket-propelled grenades. So strong was the fire that it was blowing all the leaves and branches off the trees that were there. They were only hiding behind some small rocks and boulders that were there. And during the attack, the first casualty was Patrick Liebert. He was a sniper, and he was doing his job out front, trying to keep them safe. And unfortunately, as he popped his head up to get a view of the enemy, he took a bullet in the head, and he was killed. Another young soldier by the name of Brian Bradbury, a PFC, a 22-year-old kid from Missouri.
He's the one you saw when after the
Yeah,
shooting.
he ended up, Brian ended up getting hit by an RPG and was stuck in no man's land. He was in an empty plateau about 30 feet from cover and just laying there in the middle. And, of course, the enemy was firing at him. And my son decided that wasn't a good thing, that he had to go out and save Brian. So Jared called in coordinates for a coordinated attack by air power, which would take, about 20 minutes to get there. Also from mortars and artillery, and then he passed off his headphone and put his helmet on and said, "I'm going to go get that kid." And he went out to get Brian, but the enemy fire was so strong it drove him back behind a rock. Jared wasn't the kind of kid that would ever give up on anything, and Brian was still out there. So
I know another platoon leader wanted to go out, but Jared, I believe, said he was part of my platoon.
He's my boy. I'll get him.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, there were two squads.
Yeah.
One squad was headed by Sergeant Chris Cunningham,
Right.
the other by Jared.
Right.
Cunningham first said he was going to go rescue Bradbury, and Jared said he's my guy. Also, as Morris, as I began to talk to the other soldiers in the mountain, they described how Jared saved their lives. And at first I didn't quite understand it, because I knew the story was that he went out to try and save Bradbury. But then I began to understand that they were running low on ammunition. They had to hold out. There was mortar fire coming in from the Gowdish Bridge, but it was really air support that was going to save their lives. They had to buy time for air support to arrive. So when Jared ran out 3 times, all of the Taliban focused their fire on him. He sacrificed himself not just in an attempt to save Brian Bradbury, but the rest of the patrol. It's really an extraordinary act of bravery.
Paul, I'd like to get back to you for 1 minute. How did you find out that Jared was awarded the recipient of the Medal of Honor posthumously?
Well, I got a phone call, and it was a woman on the phone, and she said, "Are you Paul Monti in 408 Center Street, Rainham?" I, "Yes, I am." She said, "Thank you. We just wanted to call and verify that this is the correct phone number." And then some time passed, probably 10, 15 minutes, and I got another phone call, again from the same woman, and she asked the same questions. And this time she said to me, "Could you hold the phone for a minute? There's someone here that wants to speak to you." And so I waited, and all of a sudden the voice came on and says, "Mr. Monti, this is the President of the United States, President Obama, and I'd like to inform you that your son Jared has been cleared by the Secretary of the Army and the Secretary of Defense to receive the nation's highest honor, the Medal of Honor."
And you went down there to meet them?
I did. In September 17th, 2009, went to Washington, D.C., had a wonderful audience with the President and his wife, and was very, very honored to be there and to receive the medal on behalf of my son.
Congratulations. It's a sad way to get it, but congratulations.
He would much rather have his son
Son,
back than have any
definitely.
medal.
Yeah.
That's so very true.
By the way, I want to get back to you, too, Len. This book came out in December, I believe. That's the first printing was in December?
Yes, the e-book came out first.
Oh. So it's on the internet, too?
Yes, people can get it from Amazon.com or from BarnesandNoble.com.
And then, do you plan to do any more writing in the future? I mean, this is an excellent book, so I don't think you should give it.
I don't know. If I did, it would have to be a story that was really important to me. This mattered to me. as I think back of all the things I've done in my work life, there's nothing that approaches this in importance. You know, I'm proud of what I did. I'm so pleased that Paul gave me the opportunity.
And Lenny did an excellent job as well.
It's an excellent book and an excellent job and an excellent ride.
Story of a life well lived.
Yep. Steve, what are your future plans for the Senior Center? I'm sure you got lots of them.
Here's my ideal plan. I hope we can accomplish this in the next few years. Today's senior population has changed. A lot of people who were seniors years ago were 62 and over. Today people are living longer. We talked about this at lunch today. They have more activities. They're working longer. The ideal senior center is not a senior center in itself. It's a community center, which would have a senior services center, a youth services center, a veterans services center, and possibly a medical facility of some kind. And that would be an ideal situation, all housed in one area. There could be intergenerational activities, and there could be sharing of events, and be more open as a more community-minded center as opposed to just one segmented center for one type of population. That would be the ideal. In the immediate future, I hope to be able to work more closely with businesses in the community and offer new programs and services, increase our transportation needs, and be able to coordinate more trips in a more refined manner. We did start a collaborative called Trips for All with Winthrop Council on Aging, with the Somerville Council on Aging, with the Patriots Club in Revere, you know, the Senior Patriots Club, and our Senior Center. And those plans were derailed as a result of the death of one of the founders of that collaborative. So we're trying to get back up on track and offer better day trips. And with this new van, I might be able to do that. I'd like to offer more specialized day trips instead of multi-day trips, or trips to just like Foxwoods or down to Wright's Chicken Farm or wherever we go. But more specialized trips that would bring more people towards the center. More cultural trips, more trips to music venues and museums, that kind of thing. So that's my ultimate goal in the near future.
I'd like to say one thing about the Senior Center, and the reason I love it so much, I have to go to the VA every so often to check just my blood pressure, nothing else. But since you have a nice nurse right here in the city of Revere by the name of Carol Donovan, she comes down, I believe, the first Thursday and last Thursday?
First and third Thursday
of the month.
And that's new because there was a greater need for her to come on those days, because that's when we have more people. And we also, as you know, we have a podiatrist that comes once a month. We have Carol doing the blood pressure and consultations. We have a chair massage. We have a lot of things like that that we offer to seniors, and we do offer a senior newsletter. If you would like a newsletter, you can call up and ask for one to be mailed to you. I now send it to Revere TV, so they post it on the TV, and it's located in a number of different banks, stores, pharmacies, and other locations throughout the city of Revere.
Now, the reason I said that is because when Carol comes down and takes my blood pressure, which at one time was very high, but thanks to her, they dropped it down quite a bit. I don't have to make a special trip into Boston. All I have to do is whatever she takes, she lets me know. I go home, I call up my doctor, and I let him know that's what she said to me today. And he'll tell me whether it's good or bad or whether I have to come in. And that has saved me a lot of time of having to go into Boston.
Another immediate goal is that we have a Shine counselor right now. This is a person that comes and talks to people who are over 65 about their health insurance, the rising costs that they pay. And we hope to increase the participation and help to get another counselor down as well. Seems to be a greater need for that.
That's good. Lenny, I want to get back to you. Before we continue, I usually do this with everybody that comes on a show. We give them a flag. This is from the Revere veterans. But these are special flags, because these were given to me by you, Paul. You gave me about 20 flags to pass out to the veterans. So I'm going to give you one back. So first, Lenny, here's a flag for you. And thank you, Mr. Monti, for the flags.
Thank you.
And the Revere Veterans Association, we do the same thing for the city of Revere. One for you, Paul, so there's
Thank
your
you, sir.
back, and one for you.
Well, I'm going to decline only because
No,
I
you
want to
can't-
donate it back to to you.
You can do that after.
Okay, I can
First
do
take
that.
it, and then you can donate it back.
Yeah, because I know you need them for the Bourne Cemetery. So.
No, he donated them to us.
I donated from our supply.
Right, I understand.
Right,
We
so
have
we can give them to the veterans that come
Right.
on the show.
Okay.
Because that's what we fought for, that's what we're all here for, the freedom of this great country, and this is what represents it, right here, the flags, the 50 states. I hope that's no more states.
It would be a
know
state of
about that.
confusion if that happened.
We have
know
to
about
get the
that.
We've
flag.
been talking about Puerto Rico or D.C. for a long time now.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're talking about becoming a state eventually. And
Yeah.
It's been a long while.
But again, can I just mention the upcoming book signing on Memorial Day at 10:30? Len will be back for another book signing. Paul will join him, 10:30. It's a Thursday morning, just before our monthly luncheon with our special entertainer. So I encourage everybody to come down and buy a copy of this book. It's a beautiful book about unselfishness, courage, valor, and it shows the true American spirit.
Right, it's
That
called
Jared
Free
M-
on the High Ground. And
Right.
by the way, it also has a terrific story, but more important than that, it has pictures of your son in there too, Paul,
Yes.
as he grew up from a child to become a great American hero.
And a portion of the revenue from the book goes to Jared's Charitable Contribution Fund, which aids military charities.
Right. Now, we also do something on this show, which we started not too long ago, and it's worked out pretty good. If any of you three haven't seen some of your comrade in arms for maybe 10, 20, 30 years, and if you're looking for them, tell us who they were, and if they want to contact you, they could contact you through reveretv.org. So let's say I had a couple of buddies that I did not see since World War II, and I put them on the internet. I like to repeat one as a startup. Bob Shelton. If you're out there from Virginia, you came over my house when we were in the service together back in 1946. So if you're still kicking around, call RevereTV.org. I'd like to meet you again. We may not remember each other, but we might have done again too, because we both took basic training at Fort Dix. Anybody you'd like to bring back in your memory?
Nobody. No, I'm all set.
How about you, Paul? Someone you'd like to see?
No, all my old classmates, all my old friends and fellow participants in the Braintree Warriors Drum and Bugle Corps. If you're out there, I'm right there on Facebook. You can find me at any time with my contact information.
That's good. So if you have any old comrades out there, and by the way, you, Lenny.
No, same thing. We will be doing a book signing in Braintree, though.
Yes.
So hopefully Paul will see a lot of our old classmates there.
You know, I play a lot of music, as you know, Steve, at the Senior Center. There's one song march I play. It's a German march. It's from World War I. It's got the best title. It's called Alte Kameraden, which means old comrades in there. But it's just as good as some of John Philip Sousa's marches. So I thought, you know, I'd like to bring that up because we do play all kinds of, by the way, we do play all kinds. We play polkas, we play Italian, we play French, we play German, we play Latin, Spanish. Did I leave out anybody?
A lot.
Probably. Yeah.
Austrian waltz.
Sure.
Yeah. I told a lot of people if they like country music, you know, and a lot of them do like country music, so I put on a Chinese CD. They got teed up.
You know, we should shout out to any veterans who don't come to the Senior Center. You know, as you know, we're entrenched in making sure that our veterans have a great place to go. And the Senior Center certainly is that. So if there are any veterans that don't come to the Senior Center, men or women, please come down.
And might I add, it's worth going to that senior center to see one of the best comedians you've ever heard in your life. His name is Morris, and whatever, he will make you laugh. I don't care what mood you're in, Morris will make you laugh. It's well worth your time to go to the senior
Look,
center.
I see him
just
every
to
day.
see
He
Morris.
makes me cry. He doesn't make me laugh.
And Morris has one particular joke, which is an all-purpose joke, fits any occasion. Right?
Let's hear it. You could ask anybody or yours truly.
Well, you're the master. You're the master, Morris.
Right away.
I can't do your material.
Yes, you can, because I'll tell you, I went into the Army at the age of 17 in a few months. I did. I tried to get in at 16, but they wouldn't let me because young. I forged my mother's note, but they were wise to me. So anyway, I went in at the age of 17. And by the time I was 17 and a half, I was only in there about 4 or 5 months, I was voted the second best soldier in the whole European theater. Second best.
Who was the best?
All the others.
Ah.
So anyway, let me tell you what happened.
I'm going to start crying now.
You've heard this one
A
before.
couple of times.
There's no drum here, or we'd have a roll.
No,
Yeah.
Paul, so the captain who was my commanding officer, his name was Captain Allegro, he calls me into the office. He says, Morris, this is in Berlin, Germany. You've been here 4 months. You got 4 hours, excuse me. You've been here 4 hours. You got the whole Russian army in and abroad, the French, the British, and the Americans. I says, go to hell, Captain. He says, what'd you say? I says, go to hell. He says, you don't talk like that to a commanding officer. He says, you're a fresh brat, meaning me. He says, here's what I'm going to do to you, Morris. I'm going to restrict you to the barracks for 1 month, or I'm going to court-martial you, or I'm going to reprimand you at 30 days' pay. He says, Morris, take your pick. And I thought for a minute, I says, okay, Captain, I'll take the money. I thought you like a little hobby. So, Paul, getting back to you, because we got about a few more minutes to go. We want to go, what are your future? By the way, you had relatives that were in the service. Tell us something about your relatives that were in the Army.
Well, I had uncles in World War II. Unfortunately, all have passed right now. All except one. I have one uncle who served in the Navy, who still has the scars where the shrapnel from a torpedo went through his leg. And had uncles that served in the Army, another one that was in the Army Air Corps, and another one that was in the Navy. So I had that history there. My dad wasn't allowed to serve. He had a couple of kids at the time, but he did his serving at the Quincy Naval Shipyard, where he was an inspector of the ships, and actually he was more of an electrician, running wires down in the hold of the ship. And one of his close friends was a guy by the name of Kilroy. And many people have heard of Mr. Kilroy.
Yeah, Kilroy was here.
Yeah, well, as Kilroy would inspect parts of the ship, he would do a little drawing of a little man with his nose over the top and his fingers on there, and write Kilroy was here, and that became an extremely famous thing. And as Lenny points out in the book, that even Hitler himself, who had seen this Kilroy is here thing, thought it was some kind of a secret code. So Dad built ships, and among the ships he built was the USS Hornet aircraft carrier, the USS Massachusetts.
Did you say the Hornet?
Yes, sir.
That was the one that Jimmy Doolittle was when they bombed Tokyo.
That's correct. And a strange thing is my oldest brother, I'm one of 13 children, my oldest brother joined the Navy and ended up serving on the Hornet. Wasn't the same Hornet, of course, because that original Hornet had been sunk, but just, its namesake, the Hornet. So we always had a military tradition in our house, even though everybody didn't serve. We believed in this country and all of the good things that this country provides for us. I guess being a little political here, which I'm usually not, I think we hear a lot of people complaining about this country and the way it's run and everything else, and I'm afraid that they don't look and see all the good things that this country provides. This is the most fabulous place in the world to live, and honor it and love it and honor those veterans that keep it safe.
You're right. Before I get to you, Lenny, I want to say, I'm sure a lot of you people heard of the great country singer Merle Haggard, who made up a song, "If You Don't Like This Country, Leave It." Or I think it was Okie from Muskogee was the name of that tune, if my memory serves me correct. Lenny, tell us something about your family.
Yeah, I'd like to share a story about my father. He served in World War II, and he was being shipped overseas to England, His company was divided into two groups. The A through M group was on one cargo ship. The other ship consisted of those whose last name was N through Z. The A through M was hit by a torpedo, sunk. There were no survivors. He fortunately was on the other ship, so he was a survivor, but he was a victim in other ways. He helped defend London from the Blitzkrieg, the Nazi bombings every night. And one of my earliest memories was asking him, "Dad, what was it like in London during those bombings?" And he looked at me, and it was sort of a blank stare I had never seen before. He opened his mouth, but there weren't any words that would come out. For many, many years, I thought he had forgotten what happened during the war, because I would always ask him. And then it finally dawned on me, the problem was that he couldn't remember. The problem was not that he couldn't remember, it was that he couldn't forget. I'll never forget his blank stare. Even at 87 years old, I would ask him, and he'd just give me the stare. He'd be lost. And I know a lot of veterans have given others that stare. A lot of people have seen that stare in their family.
You know, when I was a kid, before I even went into the service, because I went in 46, the war was already over then, my father used to listen to the radio, and it was Edward R. Murrow, if my memory serves me correct, who was broadcasting from London when the Blitz was going on. Was it Edward? Yeah, I guess it was Edward R. Murrow on there.
Yes, he was famous for that.
Yep. Steve, tell us something about your family, military.
Well, both my dad served in Korea for 3 years, and my grandfather was in World War I, stationed in France. He was a cavalry bugler. And when the war was over, he was able to bring his horse back home, and he had it for a few months. It was well before I was born. But one of the things I have a fond memory of is when I was growing up as a kid, every memorial service down at the cemetery after the parade, he would dress in his World War I uniform, and he would play taps, and it's just something that sticks in your mind, and how proud people were at that time to be Americans, and not that we're not today, but it just seems that generation had something more fervent in their bellies in regard to the spirit of America and appreciating the country for what it is. So that's a really good memory. I actually have a beautiful picture of my grandfather on horseback with that bugle, and my mother still has that bugle.
She does?
She does have that bugle, yeah.
Maybe someday on the show we'll get you to bring up that picture and the bugle.
Sure.
You know what I'd like to see in this country? I might be a little out of line saying this here, but I would like to see mandatory military service for everybody for at least 1 year. At least 1 year to make the school kids serve in the Army, Navy, Marines, Air Corps, wherever, Coast Guard, wherever they want to, just to be more patriotic, because I do not see the patriotism of today as I did when I was a child. I got to be honest about that. In World War II, we all chipped in. We had books, 10 cents, buy a bond, savings bonds. You don't see that today anymore over here. All you hear is people protesting. People come back, even some of them when a soldier gets killed, they have a funeral. Protesters are out there.
Right.
Let me add one thing too, Morris.
Please do.
And that is I have a daughter, my oldest daughter, who served her country in a different way as part of City Year. And I too think everyone should serve in some capacity. She started out in Boston, and Boston wasn't a tough enough city for her. So she then moved to Detroit to start up City Year. That wasn't tough enough. So she moved to New York City. After that, she decided to serve in the Peace Corps.
That's good.
She went to Paraguay, which is one of the poorest countries of the world. And teachers in Paraguay, believe it or not, don't go to college. They have no special teacher training. They just teach. So her mission there was to train the teachers how to teach. And it was something she gave to the people of Paraguay that was significant. You can serve in a number of ways, but I believe everyone should serve the country in some capacity.
I think President Kennedy was the one that made the Peace Corps popular.
Correct.
And everybody should serve, like his daughter, everybody should serve something to help America. You know, like President Kennedy said, don't ask what you can do for your country, what your country can do for you, but what can you do for your country?
People have different talents and abilities. They should serve in some capacity. It teaches them compassion.
We have a good thing here in Revere, which they didn't have when I was a kid, by the way, the reserve ROTC with the young kids, and we had some of them come from the Revere High School. They came up on our TV show. They did a beautiful job. We have a superintendent who's retiring, Dr. Macon, I believe. Dakin, excuse me. Dr. Dakin, who was voted the #1 school superintendent in the United States out of 50. So that speaks highly for the city of Revere, which we have a good representation up there. And I would like to ask, if you have any suggestions for the schools, what you would like to see the schools do, whether they be elementary, high school, or college.
Well,
Go ahead, Steve.
Well, you know, one of the things that I noticed, and I think everybody experienced, especially this month where we've had one storm after another, of course it's related to seniors, that they have a lot of trouble having a snow removal, having snow removed from their walkways, their driveways, and everything. And in the school system, it would be wonderful, and I think Melrose does this, but I'm not sure. They have a growing list of students who have to fulfill community service obligations, and that would be an ideal thing to start in Revere if they don't have it already. I don't know.
They do have, from what I heard from the senior center, Lois, you call them up, and if you need help.
That's the ROTC, Snow Angels, I believe.
Right.
But this would be different. This is not ROTC related. It would be those students who are required to perform community service if they had a growing list of snow shovelers to help people in need. You know, I think that's a great idea.
Right. I would like to see more patriotism being taught in the schools, really, because I don't think there is enough. And one thing I have to say, I don't see any state or any school taking out the Pledge of Allegiance, #1, taking out from the In God We Trust. This is what we were built on. We were built on a Christian Judaic state, and we should keep it that way. We have people that come over from the Middle East, the Muslims. They're welcome to come to our country and become part of our community. We love to have them. We have a lot of the good ones right here in the city of Revere who help the veterans who do community work. We love to have these people come here, but we want them to come here legally. That's all we ask, because it isn't fair for someone who came here and wants to become a citizen. This is the way I feel personally. A lot of people say, well, they want to make it, everybody who's here now becomes a citizen. No, if you came here legally and want to become a citizen, good, because it's not fair to them to have illegal people come in and take their place. That's the way I feel.
Right.
I would like to ask you how you gentlemen feel about that. Go ahead, Paul. Tell me, do you think?
You know, all I can think of, my 4 grandparents emigrated to this country, and I don't know anybody who doesn't have a grandparent or great-grandparent who came to this country.
Same here.
And it's all of those people that made this country what it is and as strong as it is. In unity there is strength. So I don't see a major problem. I don't know why people get so uptight about immigration, people coming to this country, because we need them. We need these people because they are going to be the new innovators in this country. They're going to come up. Now, I understand what you're saying about illegal immigration. And, yeah, people should come in the right way.
That's what I mean. They should have them come in just like the regular, like my mother and father who came from abroad, became Ellis Island, became citizens. In those days, by the way, you did not come to America unless you had a sponsor. I'm sure your parents were the same, or your grandparents were the same.
Correct. But we have to understand that there are many, many thousands, tens of thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of jobs in this country that would never get done if it wasn't for the new immigrants.
Correct.
Because they're the only ones willing to do those jobs. So, you know, America, we're here. We are, you know, send me your tired and your poor. And that's the way we are, and we should honor that. And if we can make some corrections in our laws to streamline the immigration policy, to make it a fair policy, then let's do that. We have the ability to do that. Let's work together to do that. I see social media and the media in general pushing certain values. Instead of working together to make it a better country, they push certain issues, and that's all they want. This is the way we want you to think. And that's just not the way it should be.
Right, but you know, I would like to, immigrants coming to this country, I mean, like let's say he's a doctor, or not a lawyer, or a doctor, or an engineer, or a scientist. Like now you take Werner von Braun, who was a Nazi during the Second World War, right?
Yep.
Head of the rocket in Germany. We got a hold of him before the Russians did. Why? Because we wanted to improve on going to the moon, going to the spaces. So we grabbed them. These are the people, okay, but they came here legally. The government.
On the other hand,
Go ahead.
what's the difference between legal and illegal? It's an artificial quota. It's just a number that somebody dreams up, that just pulls out of the air, and it says there can only be a certain number of people from this particular ethnic background. I don't know where those numbers come from.
That's done by the government. That's done by the government.
It's done
But
by
who-
some.
It's done by a person in the
Yeah,
government.
it's done by some
or a
committee.
group of people or some committee. And I don't know if it's right. Those numbers aren't set in stone. And I understand
What I'm saying-
Werner von Braun, but on the other hand, there are people who do other important
Okay.
jobs too.
Here's something. Let's say we're all foreigners and we all want to come to America. I apply for an application at the embassy, we'll say in Germany. They give me a number, number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. I come legally. But suppose someone sneaks across the border to become an immigrant. Now, they say to you, you got to wait 2 years, or you got to wait 3 years. They have a quota. So someone from the same country sneaks across the border. He should have more right than you who apply legally? That's all I'm saying.
No, it's a complicated issue.
It is a very complicated issue.
I know my grandfather spoke, he was in Russia. He spoke for freedom, individual choice, and they put him in a Siberian prison because of that. He escaped from Siberia and came to the U.S. Thank goodness.
Thank goodness it's
He was
right.
a criminal. That's what he was, because he spoke for freedom and justice.
But he came here legally, didn't he?
But it wasn't so easy.
No, but he
Thank goodness
Morris,
the
there
numbers were right for him.
There is an element of discrimination in what you're talking about, because those that come from Eastern Europe, they go to the embassy, they get their little ticket, they say, okay, come on in. We don't have people coming from Eastern Europe that are denied entry into the country.
Nobody should be denied entry into this country.
Okay.
No one. But they should come
But
here.
we have people that come from Central and South America, especially Central America, who come into this country, and maybe they're coming across a fence and stuff, which I don't agree with, but they come in and they're picking cucumbers, which the Eastern Europeans are not going to be doing.
No, you're right.
But this guy's picking cucumbers, and then he and his wife, they have a child or two, and that child grows up and becomes a senator, or becomes a scientist, or becomes a doctor, or becomes a lawyer, or invents something that's great, because that's what all the other ethnic groups did over time.
Right, Paul, but
And
I
that's
don't
what
want to
we
see,
can't
like
forget.
you say, I know what you're saying. I don't want to see quotas, like so many people can come from Ireland, but not too many can come from Uruguay. Give them numbers. Forget about the quotas. The first, let's say the first year we're going to allow 100,000 in from number 1 to 100,000. The second year from 100,000 to 200,000. Regardless whether they're Chinese, Japanese, Irish, or whatever, no ethnic background, but that's how we do it. We look at people where they come from.
Yeah.
That's what I meant by discrimination.
Yeah.
But legally, everybody should be.
All
able-
I
of this,
see that image
yeah.
too on the
Right.
Statue of Liberty.
Right.
Give me a poor, give me a hungry.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what America's all about. You're
But-
all welcome.
All of this is driven by economics.
Remember, exactly.
And that's where the problem comes in. I think we blame who it's easy to blame, government.
Exactly.
That's the easy part. We're not going to blame the big industrialists in this country. We're not going to blame the big banks, okay? But the problem comes, it's economic. Okay?
You're right.
We're going to let these people in because they're better for the economy than these people. And that's where your
Discrimination.
numbers,
That's
right, and
discrimination right there.
that's where your numbers come
We got about 3 minutes left. Each one take a minute to wrap it up, starting with you, my friend.
Okay, again, as I said in the top of the show, it's been an honor to meet these gentlemen today and have a nice book signing, to learn more about Jared, to learn about, sacrifice, and to learn about, what it takes to be an American. Not that you have to give your life to be a strong American. And I look forward to them returning in May, and I do hope that everybody comes out and meets Len, meets Paul, has a chance to talk to them, and purchases a book.
Right. Thank you, Paul. Take a minute to wrap it up, too.
I just like to ask people to love your country, support your country. And that means support your veterans. We do have the most phenomenal country in the world. We shouldn't be complaining about things. If we want to make it better, let's do it the right way. We have the vote, and we're able to do that. If you're complaining about politicians, well, you voted the politician in. Find a better one. I want to thank all the veterans of the country that have kept us safe, especially people like Morris himself and what he's done then. And
Thank you, Paul. Thank you very much, and thank you for your service, and especially your son. Lenny?
I want to say that working on this book about Paul's son has been very fulfilling for me. And it seems now each day I get something, an email, a card, a letter, something from somebody that makes me say this was an important endeavor. I know, Paul, you've been getting them for many, many years now. Here's one that I got yesterday that I'd like to read. Thank you for sending me a signed copy of your book. I only heard about it recently on NPR. Had never heard the song I Drive Your Truck before. My husband was a firefighter killed on 9/11. He had a '78 Ford F-150. When my son turned 17, he was able to start driving it. The song really reminded me of him. He was very patriotic. He admired service members greatly and always flew our flag. Thanks again. There's a lot of people like this who are very appreciative, where the song Paul and Jared's story has meant a great deal to them, provided them with a lot of comfort and inspiration.
Right. I want to thank each and every one of you for coming. God bless our troops wherever they are. God bless all of you and the people of Revere. But most of all, God bless our great country, the United States of America. Thank you all for listening. Until the next time, I hope we have as great a show as we had today. Thank you, folks.